Narcissism isn't one thing. It wears different masks, speaks in different tones, and can be almost impossible to spot until you're already tangled in it. Sometimes for years. Today, we're breaking down 6 types of narcissists, what they actually look like, what's driving the behavior underneath, and how to protect yourself if one of these is already in your life. The grandiose narcissist. This is the one most people picture first. It's more than confidence. It's a constant, almost desperate need to be seen as superior. They dominate conversations, exaggerate achievements, and expect admiration like it's owed to them rather than earned. In a room, they're the loudest voice, the one who somehow makes every story about them, even when it started as someone else's. Underneath the bravado is a fragile sense of self that can't survive being ordinary. Praise floods their system like fuel, and any perceived slight, a joke at their expense, being overlooked, a mild disagreement, can trigger a reaction way bigger than the moment calls for. This isn't about ego for the sake of ego. Psychologists often describe it as a defense mechanism against a deep, buried fear of being unimportant. Around them, you might feel small, unseen, or constantly one-upped, like your own wins somehow need their approval to count. The best protection is refusing to compete for their approval, keeping your accomplishments to yourself if they can't celebrate them, and recognizing early that their confidence was never really about you. It was always about managing their own insecurity. The vulnerable narcissist, also called covert narcissism, this type doesn't look like narcissism at all at first. Instead of bragging, they play the victim. Every conversation somehow circles back to their pain, their bad luck, their mistreatment by other people. They're hypersensitive to criticism, and even gentle feedback can trigger hours of sulking or silent withdrawal. What makes this type so confusing is the disguise. They can seem shy, sensitive, even self-deprecating, which makes it hard to recognize the same fragile self-image that drives the grandiose type, just hidden behind fragility instead of bravado. Both types need external validation to feel okay. The vulnerable narcissist just gets it through sympathy instead of admiration. Being around them can feel like constant emotional management. You're always the one comforting, reassuring, apologizing for things that weren't your fault, and never quite the one being heard. Therapy that targets emotional regulation and self-worth can genuinely help this type. But for the people around them, learning to spot the guilt tripping and gently declining to take responsibility for their feelings is the key protective skill. The malignant narcissist. This is the most dangerous version. Grandiose traits mixed with something colder. A willingness to manipulate, deceive, or even enjoy other people's discomfort. Malignant narcissists don't just want admiration, they want control. They can be genuinely charming in public, the person everyone else thinks is wonderful, while being cold, cruel, or punishing behind closed doors. They use guilt, fear, or humiliation strategically, not accidentally, to keep people close and compliant. There's often a real absence of remorse, which makes apologies feel hollow and repeated harm feel intentional, rather than a lapse in judgment. Some researchers link this pattern to overlapping traits with antisocial personality, which is part of why this type can feel genuinely unsafe, rather than just difficult. If you recognize this pattern in someone close to you, the priority isn't fixing them. That's usually not possible without their full willingness, which is rare. The priority is protecting yourself, often with distance, clear boundaries, and outside support from a therapist or trusted people who can see the situation clearly from outside it. The communal narcissist. This one hides in plain sight because it looks like generosity. Communal narcissists need to be seen as the most caring, moral, or selfless person in any room, but it's still about image, not real connection. They'll remind you, often subtly, of everything they've done for others, and they react badly when their goodness goes unnoticed or unthanked. The giving itself is often real. They do help people, show up, and do kind things, but the motive underneath is validation, not love. The point is being seen as good, not necessarily doing good quietly. Around them, you might feel like your gratitude is being harvested, rather than genuinely welcomed, and any hint of criticism toward them gets met with a reminder of just how much they've sacrificed. Recognizing this type means noticing when kindness always seems to come with an invoice attached. The somatic narcissist. For this type, the body is the main source of self-worth. Appearance, fitness, sex appeal. It becomes the primary currency of their identity, and they need constant confirmation that they're desired. Compliments about looks land completely differently than compliments about character, because the body is the only currency that feels real to them. Relationships with a somatic narcissist can feel transactional, built more on being seen with them than being genuinely known by them. Aging, weight changes, illness, or anything that threatens their physical image can trigger real emotional crisis. Not vanity in the shallow sense, but something closer to an identity collapse, because their sense of self was never built on anything more stable underneath. The cerebral narcissist. Here, the ego runs through intelligence instead of looks or charm. Cerebral narcissists need to be the smartest person in the room, and they'll use logic, facts, or condescension to win arguments rather than ever acknowledge being wrong. Being wrong isn't just uncomfortable for them, it feels like a direct threat to their entire identity. Being close to them can mean constantly having your ideas dismissed, your intelligence subtly undermined, or your opinions reframed as less informed than theirs, even in areas where you actually know more. Genuine debate often turns into a battle they can't afford to lose, because for them, losing an argument isn't just losing a point, it's losing their sense of who they are. Narcissism isn't a single personality, it's a spectrum of ways people protect a fragile sense of self, often at someone else's expense. Some types are loud, some are quiet, some look like generosity, and some look like intelligence. But underneath almost all of them is the same core fear, that without the mask, they might not be enough. Recognizing the pattern early is the first real step to protecting your own energy, your own boundaries, and your own sense of reality. Which type did you recognize in someone you know, or maybe in a moment of your own? Tell us in the comments. I read every single one. And if this helped you make sense of a confusing relationship or situation, subscribe for more videos that break down the psychology behind everyday behavior.